I want to take a moment and talk about the current state of cornhole, or my opinions on the current state of cornhole and where I think we're headed as a sport. I thought with the ACO just finishing up their World Championships last weekend, the ACL is starting theirs this weekend into this week. I thought it was a perfect time to kind of talk about what's going on and where I think we're headed, where I think we should head, some changes that I want to see made. Don't know if they will, but I thought I'd just give you my thoughts on it. I've got some notes. I got my laptop sitting here just off camera. I got notes here just so I don't get too far off course, because sometimes I tend to ramble, and I want to make this as concise as I can because I value your time. So let me go and jump right in. The first thing I'm going to start with is probably the biggest news in the ACL right now, and that's the bag companies that are leaving the ACL, not renewing their stamp for the 2025 season. For those that aren't aware or haven't been on Facebook, Buffalo's announced they're leaving. 724 Bagger Company, Ninja Bags, Feist Bags, Magnum Bags, and then Local Bags has actually, I think, gone out of business. So that's 6 companies right now that we know of. Every year, companies leave and more come in. To me, this really isn't a big deal. It's getting blown out of proportion, and I think it's because Buffalo was the first one to announce. They put a post on social media just kind of saying what's going on, and I respect that they did that. I appreciate they did that, but I think people took it the wrong way. And why are these companies leaving? I don't know. I think it's a good variety of reasons for why they're leaving. I think some may be money related. Some may be, I think Buffalo even mentioned it was more about they just wanted to get control back, that they felt like that their time with the ACL had come to an end, and they just wanted control back on their company. Because the ACL does have a lot of control over these bag companies as far as what they can make, what they can't make, the changes they can do. And for good reason. The ACL has their stamp on that bag. They have their name on that bag. So it's representing them, whether, regardless of what's on that bag. So they got to protect their company. And that's something we have to remember is, the ACL, the ACO, the TCL, these are businesses. These are for-profit businesses. These aren't charities. So they're out there to make money. And so when I hear people talk about the greed of the ACL, I kind of laugh because, every company to some degree has to be greedy. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business, right? You have to be able to make money, and that's what the ACL is doing. And honestly, the money they put out there, I don't think people really realize that when they do an ACL Open in a city and they have to rent a facility to put it up, they have to rent the facility pretty much for the whole week because they got to set up leading to the weekend. They're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 just to rent that facility. That doesn't include the labor for the people to come set up and to run the events and everything going on behind the scenes, all the equipment there. And then if they're on CBS Sports Network or ESPN2, they're paying for that airtime as well. So there's a lot of money that goes into what they do to put these events on that people don't know about. If you have an issue with what the ACL is doing, then you can respond back by putting your money somewhere else. But understand that the ACO has their issues as well. I mean, the ACO was the first league out there, and then people left that and went to the ACL because the payouts weren't that good in the ACO. There was money going in, not a lot coming out. So there are issues on the ACO side just as well as the ACL. I would say the ACO is better. They're more bag maker friendly than the ACL because they have lower fees, less control. They give a little more freedom to the bag companies. I think the ACL is better for the players. They seem to have better payouts. The pros in the ACL tend to make a better living. You have some full-time pros in the ACL. The ACO, I don't know. You may have a few. You don't have a lot. Like the money on the ACO side isn't quite there where it is in ACL. So there's differences in the leagues, and you just have to pick which one that you think is more important and go that direction. I think both of them do things great. I think they both do some things wrong, and I'll get to that in a moment. But to get back to the bag company, I will say one thing. I give kudos to the ACL because if they're allowing the bags to be valid. So if you bought a set of 724 bags this year and have the 2024 stamp on them, you can still use them through the 2025 season and the 2026 season. So they're still good until that stamp expires. And that's the ACL doesn't have to do that. I give them kudos for allowing those bags. They could just say the companies are gone, we're cutting ties, you can't use the bags anymore, and kind of screw over the consumers. In a way, the ACO, I believe, does that. Because I think when 724 left the ACO last year to go ACL, I don't think you could throw a 724 ACO stamped bag in ACO events because they were no longer on the approved list. So the ACO kind of cuts ties right there. But the ACO also doesn't have a date on their stamps. Their stamps are good as long as the bag company is approved. So a little differences in those two there. But anyway, if you have an ACL bag from most companies, you can still use it until the stamp expires. If you have a 2023 stamp bag, you can use it through the end of 2025 season, but you have to get a new one for 2026. And also, I'll say that you can still support these companies. If you're a fan of one of these companies that are gone, you can still support them. They're still going to, for some of them, I think Local's out of business. I think Magnum made a comment. They may be shutting down as well. I don't know. But I think the other companies are still in business, still be making bags. They just won't have the stamp. And most every one of you, in fact, I would venture to say every single one of you has the opportunity to play in a non-sanctioned tournament or league that doesn't require a stamp. So you can still buy these bags and throw in charity events, local tournaments, maybe even local leagues that you have around you. There are plenty of places to go that you don't need a stamped bag. So keep that in mind. If you still like these companies, go support them. And the beauty of supporting them now is that these companies have the freedom to make bags, make changes, create bags, do custom bags better than they ever could with the stamp, because now they can put the same bag out there with different materials, a different fill. They can tweak things. So you've got a lot. You as a consumer can really dictate how you want that bag to look or turn out, more so than what you could when they had the ACL stamp on there. Hope I covered that enough. I feel like I've rambled too long on that. I'm going to jump to the next probably big topic, and that's board stamps. The ACL kind of put information out that they're going to be acquiring ACL leagues, the opens, conference, not conference, it'll be states. I think they're getting rid of the conference, going to state model now. So it'll be the state tournaments, the regional tournaments, local tournaments, and the opens will all have to have ACL stamped boards. I don't know a lot of information about this. I don't know if they've put a whole lot of this information out on this yet. I do know that it doesn't take effect for this year. It'll take effect in 2026. I don't have a problem with this at the open or state level. I think those big tournaments, I think it's fine to have a stamped boards out there. My issue when you get to regional and local, those local and regional directors don't make a lot of money, if any at all. And that's where I think you're going to see issues with the ACL is those local leagues are going to maybe have to not stay ACL affiliated, because a small league, you might only have 3 sets of boards. That's $1,000 you got to put out to buy stamped boards, and you probably got boards that are in great shape that don't need to be replaced. I don't know if this board stamp is going to be an expiration type stamp, or if it's just you just got to have them and they're good until you decide to replace them again. I don't know. I know right now I think there are only 4 companies approved to make boards. I don't know if the ACL is going to approve more. I don't know if it's just a matter of filling an application with these board companies, or if the ACL is going to limit the number of companies that can make boards. I don't know. The ACL tends to also like to take control. So companies that make bags for the ACL can only make ACL stamp bags. Once you get the ACL stamp, you can't make a bag with a different stamp or no stamp. Every bag you make has to have the ACL stamp. I don't know if these companies that are getting approved means that they can only sell ACL stamped boards, which means they're probably going to be a little higher price because they got to pay for the stamp fees and all that associated with it, which means some prices may go up for these board companies. I don't know. Pure speculation on that. My issue is, and hopefully the ACL will work with these local leagues to get them boards. I doubt they'll give them boards, but at least work with them to keep them around, because the local level is where the sport grows, right? People come in brand new. They're not going to come in and go right to an ACL Open, or they're going to come in, they're going to join the local league, and they're going to learn and grow and stick around there. But if these local leagues have to raise entry fees to cover the cost of equipment and boards, it's going to be harder for local people to come in, or not as easy for them to come in, because they're going to come in, they're going to, instead of paying, $10, $20 for a blind draw or for the night, they're paying $40 or $50, especially the small leagues. The smaller leagues are going to be impacted more because it's going to be a bigger price increase for everyone. The larger leagues may not really see an issue. They may replace boards every couple of years anyway. So by 2026, they may replace all their boards. It doesn't really matter. I know smaller leagues, boards can last way longer than 2 years. You can get 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years out of them. I get that people have said that the stamp boards are going to give a certain level of consistency when you go to an ACL sanctioned event, where whatever level it is. I get that. Although I would say that you go to an ACL Open, boards in different parts of the buildings play differently. There's not consistency across the line anyway. And honestly, I compare it to like Major League Baseball. You have your minor leagues, and your AAA stadiums are great. Your Major League stadiums are great. As you go down and you get to single A, you've got some pretty crappy single A stadiums out there, but they have character. And I think of that as the local leagues are kind of the single A of the cornhole world. And it's okay if they don't have the best boards. When you show up there, everybody plays on the same boards. So, honestly, I don't care. As long as I can go throw bags, I don't really care. And I've never been to a local league where the boards were just awful that I didn't want to play on. And if you walk in there and you see them, you don't have to stick around, right? And honestly, that's a league that's not going to be ACL approved anyway. So it doesn't matter. I would also say that on the local level, if you're running a league and this is a concern for you, you don't have to stay ACL sanctioned, right? You can just run a league without it. I mean, Scornhole is wonderful. It makes it so easy to run a league. If you haven't done it before, you can run a league on Scornhole with very little effort put into it. Cornhole is it's a wonderful app, a wonderful program. It runs everything for you. It doesn't take a lot to learn, very easy to learn. So you don't have to have in fact, to me, Cornhole is better than the ACL software from what I've done with it. I like it better. I wish the ACL would go more the Scornholio direction. Don't think they ever will, but I wish they would. But anyway, I just say that to say if you've heard about this board stamp and I see people getting upset about it, if you're not a league director, I don't really think you need to worry about it unless you talk to your director and they're going to be shutting down. And the only impact it would have on you is local points, right? You may have to travel further to get your local points. And again, I think that's where that's where the growth of these leagues come from, and I think that's where the ACL maybe hurting themselves is new players come in, they go to their leagues, the local leagues, they play there, and then whatever league that's affiliated with. So if your local league is ACL and you go play ACL events, those new people are going to follow you and go play ACL events with you, regionals, state tournaments, open, stuff like that. If it's an ACO league, these new players are going to come in. They're going to go to the ACO majors or the ACO events, right? Regionals and majors for ACO. They're just going to follow where the league goes and where those players go. So that league level that local level is where the sport grows and where these leagues grow. If I'm the ACO, I'm taking advantage of this, regardless of how big of a deal this is or not. I'm taking advantage of the perception that the board stamp is going to be a problem. And I would come in and I would start offering incentives for new leagues to join. You want to start your local league and go ACO. Here's an incentive. Here's a discount for all the new players that sign up with the ACO membership through your league. They get a free entry into one of our majors or a discount entry or whatever. Here's a starter pack with some banners and whatever. Like, I just think if the ACO is there, I would be going all in on this. The other thing I would say is, with the board stamps as well, is a lot of local leagues, their boards are paid for by sponsors, right? They put their sponsor, they go out, they raise money, they say, hey, this local bank, this local business, we'll put your logo on the board if you pay for that. I don't know with this ACL stamp. I'm guessing the ACL is going to have to approve all of these sponsorships and logos to make sure they're in line with what the ACL wants, which could create problems. I'm just speculating here, and this is kind of a reach, but Bush's Baked Beans, a big sponsor for the ACL. What if Campbell's? What if there's a local warehouse or distribution facility for Campbell's, and Campbell's wants to put a Campbell's Baked Bean logo on your local ACL boards? Is the ACL going to allow that? What if the ACO wants to sponsor boards in the local ACL league, which I'm the ACO, I'm a little petty. I would be out there, I would be buying some sponsorships from these boards and putting the ACO logo with the website information on there in these local ACL leagues if I can. So I think there's going to be some issues maybe with trying to get sponsors approved, which may hurt some things. I hope by the time this rolls out in 2026, the ACL has gone through and tweaked some things and thought this through. Again, it may not, to me, it's still not a big deal because we don't know all the information. I think more will roll out. If you're not a league director, honestly, I don't think you need to worry about it until it becomes an issue where maybe your local league is impacted. Then you can talk about it, but there are plenty of other ways to go, directions to go. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Now, I'm going to go into things that I think the ACO, ACL really need to do to change, some things I don't like, some things I do like they're doing. I'm really not going to talk a lot about TCL because I don't play in TCL. The TCL is not in my area, so I really can't talk about that. But the first thing, I'm going to focus on the ACO first because I'm doing a lot of ACL talk. And the big thing for the ACO for me is I think they needed to develop some marquee events. Everything they have is an ACO major. Everything's a major. You go somewhere, it's a major. Every weekend when they're playing, it's a major. And that, to me, devalues every tournament. I get that their thought process is if you go play in one and you place or win one, it's supposed to be the same as any other one they have. So it makes it the same experience, so to speak, for everybody, no matter where you go. If you can't travel, if you just go to a local one, it's the same. But the problem is if you don't have those marquee events, then every event is kind of just brought down a little bit. So I really wish the ACO would come out with 4 or 5. Here's our marquee events. Here's the ones that we want everyone to go to, and do them differently. Like the ACL has their 4 nationals and then the World Championships. And I think both leagues can do it. If the ACO went with their 4, whatever they want to call them, or do 4 majors and then have the other tournaments to be something else or whatever, I think you take that golf format and you take that. The golf has done it and does it really well. And the beauty of golf is each one of those majors they have are a little different, right? Like the Masters is the elite of elite. Not every pro player is there. They pick, you have to qualify to play in the Masters. They handpick the ones that are there. I think it's the top, 70 players something qualify for the Masters. I would love to see the ACO have their top 70 players or whatever go to a tournament. The ACL do the same thing. You have the US Open. Anybody can qualify. You don't have to be a pro. You can go and qualify. I could go, if I was good enough in golf, I could go qualify and play in the US Open. I would love to see the ACL do a national that way, or the ACO do one of their marquee events that way, to where anybody can qualify and compete in those events. And then just take each major and make them a little unique, a little differently. And you can, you could have like the Masters is played in Augusta, Georgia every year, but the other, like the US Open, the British Open, I think it's the Open Championship, I still got the British Open. They get moved around from different courses here and there. I think you could do that, keep that format, have, certain venues that you go to every year, but certain ones that get moved around across the country as you want. I would love to see. I like the uniqueness of having each tournament be a little different, and one of it could be an outdoor tournament. One of them you could have fast boards, one you could have slow boards. The thing that comes to mind is I remember the first national, the ACL, which they do the championship 2 weeks after they played the tournament, that's something that I hated. I hope they change that for this year, but they went and did that. I remember watching it on TV, and the boards were blazing fast, and it was surprising to me how bad the pros adjusted to those fast boards. They struggled on those fast boards. And, I think for myself, and I think for a lot of you as well, when we go play tournaments, boards vary from just court to court, tournament to tournament. I think we do a pretty good job. We have to learn to adapt to play to different boards. It was amazing to me that the pros just weren't able to make those changes. I would love to see fast boards at one tournament, slow boards at another one, maybe an outdoor tournament here, and then I don't know, maybe the last tournament is kind of a combination or something like that. I would love to see different events, and that's why I think the ACL can do the nationals. I think the ACO needs to create some form of national, some form of majors for them that are marquee events. So I hope they do that. I think the ACO also needs to get tiers. I saw something, somebody posted on Facebook about possible ACO tiers. I don't know if that was someone's proposing that or if that was actually something that was going to happen. But I saw someone post that about talking about tiers on the ACO. And I just think they do. And for the simple reason of, if you're trying to grow the sport, new players come in. When you go to an ACO regional and play, it's possible your first two matches are against the two best players out there. You lose 21-0 in both games and you're gone home. Right? That's not very encouraging to make you want to come back. But if you can go in and play in the novice division, or maybe start out intermediate division, whatever, and play people that are closer to your level, even if you lose, at least you can be competitive. It makes you feel better. It goes, okay, you know what? I was close. I need to work on this, this, and this to get better. But if you go to and play with an advanced level player and you're a beginner and you just get destroyed, there's not a lot to take away from that. There's not a lot to learn from that. And so I just think you need tiers. Now the problem with the ACO is if you do tiers, you've now got to have some sort of payout at each level, and that takes a little bit more money out of their pocket. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I just think the ACO needs to come with some kind of tier system to really encourage the new players, the beginning players, to come out and help develop them, and that will grow your overall league. I think that's why the ACL is growing. One of the reasons why the ACL is growing better than the ACO is because they do have those tiers. And look, the tiers aren't perfect. People complain all the time about what players play in which division, what levels. I know they're not perfect, but it's better than not having anything at all, right? And I love that the ACL they have their tiers. Then you have the open division. Anybody can jump in and play. And you can play up a tier, right? If you want to play against tougher competition, you can play up. If you want to just play against everybody, go join the open division and you can play against anybody. And I think that gives you the freedom to pick. You can always play up. You just can't play down. And I think that's fair. And I think the ACO needs to do something like that to really, really help bring in those newer players. The last thing I'll say is the ACO needs to get better payouts. That's a one thing. If you play in ACO events, the payouts are awful. For those of you who play ACL and think the ACL is greedy, go to an ACO event and see what payouts are out there. It's worse. So I think the ACO needs to work on. Now, to go with on the ACL side, what I want to see them, they need to get rid of round limited. I hate the round limited format. It's not cornhole. It's not fun to watch. Round limited is a more conservative way to play, so you take away the great shots, the aggressive nature of it. What I would love to see them go to is what the ACO does, and that's the skins format. I love the skins format that the ACO has rolled out. I wish the ACO would do a whole tournament like that. I know they do a pro series where it's skins only for the pro players and so forth. I want to see a whole tournament. Let everybody go do it. If you don't know skins, it's you basically play to 7. Each round is worth 1 point. So it doesn't matter if you beat me 12-10 or 12-0, you get 1 point, right? It doesn't matter. The score doesn't matter. It's just who won that round. If we wash out, that 1 point rolls over the next round's worth 2. If we wash out the next round's worth 3, and so forth until someone wins. And whoever wins, they win the point for that round plus any other rounds that have rolled over. And you play till someone gets a 7. So it's still round limited. You're not playing a full game to 21. It's still a limited round. But the beauty of the skins game is at no point are you ever out of it. Even if you're down 6-0, you could still win the next 7 rounds or wash the next 6 and win the 7th and win the game. Round limited, you're eventually run out of rounds, right? If you're behind, it's tough to come back. And if you're down by more than 12 points in the last round, you can't win. The last round is pointless. And I hate the fact that they even play that last round where they're just shooting airmails. Like, there's no point in that. If the game's over and no one can, the losing team can't come back, then just the game's over, done. Like golf doesn't match play, right? You're down 4 with 3 holes to play. You lost 4 and 3. The match is over. You don't keep playing those last 3 holes because they don't matter. I wish the ACL would do that, but I hate the round limited. It's not great play. It's not fun. I mean, you get some good games every now and then, but overall the games are awful. I just wish they would go to a skins format. I think that is exciting to watch. It's a little different, right? It's not the same. It's the same game, but it isn't. So I hope the ACO takes that skins format and just makes it even bigger, because that is exciting. I would love to see Scoreholio come out with a skins format style game under the Cornhole tab, that where we can do it in local leagues and run skins tournaments, and where you can do your score matches, you can see your stats, but it still keeps track of the skins, not the actual points. So love to see that Scoreholio if you're watching. That's a recommendation I have for you guys, is to go into that and create that skins format. I think that is such an exciting alternative to the Games of 21, and it's still a limited version of that. The next thing I would say with the ACL is I just think they need to support their bag makers better. And what I mean is, I don't know how many times I watch a live stream and you see comment after comment of, hey, what bags are they throwing? Hey, what bags are the players throwing? And the announcers don't really know. They're not really up to date on the bags and so forth. And I get that. That's not really necessarily their job. But I wish that there was a way that, I wish the ACL would do a better job of, when teams come up, that they either have the teams come over. And as a team, if I'm a sponsored player, I'd be going to the announcer saying, hey, just so you know, if anybody asks, these are the bags I'm throwing. Like, as a player, it would be my job to let the announcers know that this is what I'm throwing. So if someone asks, they can answer, or they can just say that and say, hey, would you mind announcing that these are the bags we're throwing? Gives a shout out to my sponsor. I think the players need to do that. I think the ACL needs to do a better job of that. I will say the ACO, when I watched the broadcast and they're being announced by the Cornslinger bag companies, Dylan and Bill, they do a great job of identifying the bags that are out there. And I think it's because they're bag makers themselves, so they understand the value of bringing attention to that bag company. So they do that really well. But I also think that the ACO in general just does a better job. I think those announcers in general overall tend to know the bag companies better than the ACL announcers and know the style of bags. So I think the ACL needs to do a better job of giving some recognition to their bag companies, because those bag companies are paying a lot of money to be out there for the ACL, and they're supporting the ACL, and they're helping to grow the league. I think the league needs to be giving something back to them. The last thing I'll say about the ACL is I think the ACL needs to clean up their foot foul rule. Whatever the direction they go, there's just, they've done better. Like, they've made changes to the rule, and then they really didn't enforce it for the first 6 months. Now they've kind of gotten this officiating program. They're going to have officials out there and starting to enforce it. I just think they need to find a way to clean it up, because if you're trying to bring in new people, right? You're out there on ESPN and CBS, and you've got people watching who don't understand the game. That step in the line just doesn't look clean. It just looks sloppy. And I think you need to figure out a way to either clean it up, enforce what you have in place, or clean it up and get rid of it. I don't really care. I don't care which direction we go. It doesn't bother me if people step over the line. They don't really get an advantage to it. I don't have an issue with it. What I have an issue is, if there's a rule out there in place, I want to make sure everybody's playing by the same rule. If you're going to put a rule out there, you have to enforce it. Now, the ACL did better towards the last half of the season. They were awful in the beginning of the season. They did better in the last half. I think they need to continue to do better, or either get rid of that step over. In fact, most people I talk to that don't play ACL very much, or don't watch it much, that are fairly new to the game, they question, like, why are they stepping over? Is that even allowed? Because typically that's something in the backyard when you play tailgate, whatever you play, that you don't step over that line. So I just think the ACL needs to do something to clean it up to make the game look better. Then I'm going to talk just a moment about what's the future of cornhole. And the big thing right now with the Olympics going on in Paris, that people talk about, oh, we want cornhole in the Olympics. But I saw something somewhere. I don't remember who posted it or who shared it. But to be in the Olympics, the sport has to have at least 70 different countries participate in that sport to make the Olympics. I know cornhole's growing over in Europe and Australia, Canada. I don't know how many countries are really involved. I don't think it's anywhere near 70 yet. So to grow the sport, we've got to get more countries involved. And I know for my channel, my reviews, I get people from other countries send me messages asking questions. I love that. I always love helping them. But I also know that their options to buy bags are very limited, because trying to ship internationally for these bag companies is expensive, right? And so it's tough to really get. So we have to find a way to make that connection to international shipping better, whether the ACL has some kind of stores, or the ACO has some kind of stores open up over in Europe, Australia, where bags can go through there and we can reduce the shipping fees. I don't know. Something's got to be done. I don't really deal with worldwide shipping that much. I don't really know the logistics of it. Something's got to be done to ease that burden, to make it easier for these people in other countries to buy equipment, buy boards, buy bags, to play more leagues, to play with the stuff that we have. And we have to find a way to grow it in other sports. And I think that comes from bigger sponsors. Right now we're getting a lot of local sponsors, but I think we need the big name sponsors to come in there, whether it's Nike or Under Armour or Reebok, somebody come on board, or Gatorade, or somebody's got to come on board, a big name sponsor to really, and I don't really care if it's ACL, ACO. I don't care if there's a whole nother world cornhole league of some sort that comes along and says, hey, we want to really grow this worldwide. I think the ACL is kind of in charge of USA Cornhole, because the USA Cornhole tournaments are going on during the ACL Worlds in Rock Hill, South Carolina this week. So I'm guessing the ACL has a lot of control over the USA Cornhole. So maybe they're kind of the ones that are going to have to push this. But I just think we need to find a way to bring big name sponsors in, global sponsors, not just national sponsors. And I think when we start getting more recognition of sport, we're going to see the Olympics. But I don't think that's going to be anytime soon. That's going to be 3 or 4 Olympics down the road, I think, before we can ever get cornhole out there and make it that big of a deal to be in the Olympics. Anyway, I've rambled too long. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I've said. Whether you agree, disagree, drop a comment down below. Always appreciate what you guys have to say. Always appreciate your guys' input. And I thank you so much for your support that you've shown me and my channel. And I thank you for watching.